Is Metroid Other M the black sheep of the Metroid franchise? One could say the honor goes to Metroid Prime Federation, but I count that game more as a spin-off more than anything else. I don't have any experience with the Metroid games, and they didn't really catch my attention. But Metroid Other M looked different from the others that I thought, why not give it a try? A quick summary of the plot is that Samus gets back from being saved by a Metroid and defeating Mother Brain, which continues after Super Metroid. Some time passes, and she gets an emergency signal from what happens to be an abandoned spaceship. And while she's there, she meets up with her old captain from the Galactic Federation, and they team up to find out what happened on the ship. That's the beginning of the game, so let's talk about gameplay. The game is a third-person platform shooter, I guess. While exploring the ship, you'll be holding the Wii Remote horizontally, but you can point the controller at the screen and it will turn into a first-person view. It felt like they had an amazing idea of using the Wii Remote this way and saw that Metroid was a series that had first-person view and platforming. So they decided to fuse the two game series together and created this. I have faced insects, monsters, but construction equipment? Why does this machine have explosive lasers? What purpose does it serve in construction? It's an interesting idea. You can get the benefits of both the platforming and the first person view. And not only that, the game was simple enough to be played with only the Wii Remote. The simplicity sadly hurts the game's combat. The game has auto aiming, so as long as you aim towards an enemy, it will auto lock onto that enemy. Understandable since you can't really aim well in a 3D environment like this. To defend, you get a dodge that is activated by pressing a direction on the D-pad when the enemy is about to hit you, which dramatically speeds up your charged shots. The dodge does not have a penalty for spamming it, so you can just keep tapping in a direction until the dodge activates. Dodges also give you a bunch of invisibility frames that you can dodge one after another if the enemy's attack is still active. The game is also more actiony with a finishing move. When the enemy is weak enough, they'll do a certain animation where you can just run up to the enemy and do a kill move with a charge shot to kill the enemy. It's really cool and satisfying to do this on enemies. Sadly, most of my combat situations were just me shimmying around until I got a dodge to shoot the charge shot at an enemy, and if I ever noticed the weak animation, I went for it. If the game utilized more buttons to do all these things, I think the game could have been balanced a lot better. I am untouchable! There are situations where I have to switch to first person view to activate switches or for missiles. To use the first person mode, you have to point the controller at the screen. If you try to use it outside of these situations, you're gonna have a bad time. When you are in this mode, you cannot move at all, and lock on is very slow. You have to hover over an enemy to get the lock on reticle, and you lock onto the enemy by pressing B. Unless you lock onto the enemy, you will not be able to use the missile. Now imagine you're switching the controller from horizontally to vertically, trying to aim at the enemy, making sure the reticle hovers over the enemy to lock onto them, and then shooting the missile while these enemies are coming at you a mile a minute. It makes sense that the use of missile is hard outside of certain situations since they are very powerful compared to charge shots, and you can reload them whenever you want. Time for a missile barrage. I am very disappointed with the first person mode of this game. It's cumbersome and very underutilized. I thought the game was gonna have more puzzles where you had to switch between third and first person to get through certain sections. And they do, but it's not very clever. The part where the game shines the most is with its environment. Throughout the game, they have these small upgrades hidden throughout that you can collect, and collecting these are the most fun I had with the game. The game gives you small hints where they are with its environment. Getting some of these gave me those big brain moments. Wait a second. My intellect is big squared to the 10th. What I also like was they were optional and you don't need them. You can just completely ignore them since they're just minimal boost to your combat abilities. There are a couple of freebie ones you can get and others you have to work or need a keen eye for. The only thing I didn't like was that you could find some of them, but you couldn't get them. How the fuck do I get that? The reason you can't get the upgrade is because you don't have the power up to reach them. But you sort of do? Okay, let's talk about the power ups and suit upgrades. When you meet up with Adam and his squad, he says you're under his command, and you can't use anything but what he authorizes. What's even weirder is that they give you a small tutorial at the beginning of the game and they lock only one of the abilities they make you do. Why even let me do that ability in the first place? You're not finding parts you need, getting to a certain level to use these abilities, or regaining lost abilities. You're told not to use it because this guy, who has a stick up his ass, told you you can't use it. Let me just use the goddamn grappling hook! As you can see, I'm not a fan of how the game decided to dull out the power-ups. What's even weirder to me is that there are a few suit upgrades you pick up when you defeat a boss. Why not just do that with all of them? I understand that they didn't want to give me everything from the beginning, but this is just a terrible integration of it into the story. I went through this whole lava level where I took damage over time, and then after a while Adam decides, well, it's about time I let you turn on that heat resistant feature of your suit. After you went through almost the whole section of it. Samus girl, you don't need no man telling you what you can and can't do. From what I read online, a lot of people had the same issue I had with the whole power-up situation. But they also don't like the way that Samus was portrayed. I think it would have been fine to show Samus in a vulnerable state, and there is a good framework that would have made the whole denying of weapons a great part of the story. But the motivations feel weak. I don't actually have a lot of history with the Metroid games or comics, so I can't weigh in too much about this. Wow, I can't believe this character from Smash Bros. Got their own game. Besides the last boss fight, the game is pretty easy. With being able to dodge and get charge shots fast, towards the end of the game I just skipped enemies because I gained nothing from defeating them. They're just obstacles and they give me nothing. I died a handful of times in the game, and it was because the game has scripted scenes where you have to do something within a set amount of time or get an automatic game over if you don't. Every single time I got one, it wasn't very clear to me what I had to do. Metroid Other M was an okay game. It combined both game franchises into one game and tried to simplify the game for the Wii. I do think it was a good idea to make the game more actiony, but combat became repetitive with how powerful and easy its mechanics were in the game. And the first person mode was very basic. What made the game worthwhile was getting those energy tanks in the game. Figuring out and finding these small puzzles were fun, although I would have preferred to be able to get all the ones that I found, instead of having to backtrack when I got the necessary power-ups. Power-ups were the usual and could have been doled out with a better tie-in with the story. The story plots in this game were okay, with a lot of twists in them, with the exceptions of Samus' lackluster vulnerable story. I think the weirdest part was this game's obsession with the baby. The baby. Was this some birth metaphor or something? It's creepy, man. Welcome to the end of today's video on Metroid Other M. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think about this game in the comment section down below. Also, if you want me to talk about a different game, let me know in the comments as well. But as always, my lovely patients, I thank you so much for watching and tune in next time.